Not much further now. Once we cross, we're safe.
You said that before.
This time I mean it.
Keep her quiet until we're across.
By the end of 1970, roughly 10 million people had made a crossing like this one from East Pakistan into India. Not soldiers, not spies, just families, walking at night, hoping the water was shallow enough and the border guards were looking the other way. This is the story of the largest Holocaust since the Second World War. This is the story of the 1971 Indo-Pak War. In the early hours of a humid Dhaka morning in 1971, a telegram left the American consulate. It wasn't addressed to the president. It wasn't addressed to Congress. It was addressed to the US State Department, and it was signed by 20 American diplomats who broke protocol to say, in plain English,
"Our government is complicit in genocide."
it's known today as the Blood Telegram, named after the man who sent it, Archer Blood. And it's one of the strangest, angriest documents in American diplomatic history. This is the story of how a crackdown in East Pakistan turned into a refugee crisis of 10 million people, a Cold War proxy standoff involving nuclear-armed warships, and a 13-day war that redrew the map of South Asia.
Pakistan, after 1947, wasn't one country. It was two, split by over 1,000 miles of Indian territory. West Pakistan, Punjabi-dominated, home to the military and political establishment. East Pakistan, modern-day Bangladesh, Bengali-speaking, more populous and treated for 2 decades like a distant cousin who does the chores. Bengalis made up the majority of the population, but got a minority of the spending, the civil service jobs, the military postings. When a cyclone killed an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 people in East Pakistan in November 1970, the government's response was so slow and so indifferent that it became a breaking point. A month later, East Pakistan's Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won a landslide in the national election. Enough seats, in fact, to form the government of all of Pakistan. West Pakistan's military rulers were not going to let that happen.
Instead of handing over power, the Pakistani army launched Operation Searchlight on the night of March 25, 1971. Tanks moved into Dhaka. Dhaka University was the target. Students and professors were killed in their dormitories. Mujib was arrested and flown to prison in the West. The Awami League was banned. What followed over the coming months is still debated in terms of exact numbers, but not in terms of scale. Bangladeshi sources cite figures as high as 3 million dead. Most independent historians land somewhere in the hundreds of thousands to over 1 million, with widespread, systematic sexual violence against Bengali women as a documented feature of the campaign, not a side effect of it. Millions started pouring into the Indian side of the border. India was left with no choice but to come to the rescue of East Pakistan.
Roughly 10 million refugees crossed from East Pakistan into India over the following months. One of the largest forced migrations of the 20th century, dumped almost entirely on a handful of Indian border states that had no infrastructure to absorb them. Camps overflowed, cholera spread. India's Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, was facing a humanitarian and economic crisis she did not create and could not contain through half measures.
By the fall of 1971, Indira Gandhi wasn't just managing refugees, she was building a coalition. In August, India signed a treaty of friendship with the Soviet Union, effectively locking in Moscow's backing in case the war went global. Then she went on a tour of Western capitals: Washington, London, Paris. She was trying to convince the world this wasn't just a border squabble, but a humanitarian catastrophe with a high body count. Nixon received her, famously coldly, and kept backing Pakistan anyway. Come December, the US was tilting towards Pakistan and the Soviets were backing India. War was, by that point, less a possibility than a formality.
On December 3rd, 1971, Pakistan launched preemptive airstrikes on Indian airbases in the West. This move was modeled loosely on Israel's opening strikes in 1967. It didn't work nearly as well. India declared war and hit back on both fronts simultaneously. In the east, Indian forces, working with Bengali guerrilla fighters known as the Mukti Bahini, pushed toward Dhaka, bypassing fortified towns instead of grinding through them, using air superiority to paralyze Pakistani movement. In the west, the fighting was tougher and more grinding, including one of the largest tank battles since World War II, near Longowilla. The US sent their USS Enterprise carrier group into the Bay of Bengal, ostensibly to evacuate citizens, widely read at the time as a signal of support for Pakistan. The Soviets shadowed it with their own naval assets. On December 16, 1971, just 13 days after the war began, Pakistani Lieutenant General A.K. Niazi signed the Instrument of Surrender in Dhaka. Roughly 93,000 Pakistani soldiers became prisoners of war. It was one of the largest surrenders since World War II. East Pakistan ceased to exist. Bangladesh was born. The war was fought for 13 days. But the story leading into it is a lot longer than that.